Robert walked into his office. The 2 guards stationed outside saluted him. Stacks of documents awaited his attention, each demanding his signature, approval, or insight. He then picked up his pen and began. But a knock interrupted him. "Sir, there's an important call for you." "Not now. I said no disturbances," he replied without looking up. "It's your daughter, sir. She says it's urgent." His daughter Emily called once a month, like clockwork. A dutiful check-in, a polite exchange. But this was unplanned and unusual. Her voice cracked on the other end. "Dad, it's Alex. He's been in a car accident. It's bad." The next 2 hours were a blur. But Robert soon found himself boarding an overnight train to get to his son. The quickest option available. The train ride was slow. Sitting in his compartment, Robert stared at a blank piece of paper. He wanted to write, to plan the words that could bridge the years of silence between them. But the right words eluded him. After dinner, Robert stared out the window, lost in thought. He remembered a time from his early childhood when his mother had hugged him. But he couldn't remember what she looked like. His mind then shifted to his last conversation with Alex. The argument over his decision to pull the plug on his wife had torn through them, leaving a wound too deep to heal. It had been little over 3 years since they last spoke. But then suddenly, the train came to a halt. Robert looked out the window and saw the cause: a fallen tree blocking the tracks. Workers with lanterns were already clearing the way. Impatient, Robert stepped off the train to stretch his legs. As he walked, movement in a nearby tree caught his eye. An eagle perched high in its nest. Without warning, it nudged a fledgling out. The young bird tumbled, wings flailing, plunging toward the ground. Until, with a sudden flutter, it caught the air and soared. Robert stood there, transfixed. The scene struck something deep within him. Just as he lingered, lost in thought, the sharp sound of the train whistle cut through the stillness, signaling that it was ready to depart. Back in his compartment, as the train rumbled back to life, Robert picked up his pen. This time, the words flowed. After writing a long letter, Robert paused, his hand resting on the paper. He read over the words, each sentence carrying the weight of years lost. Finally, he added, "I know I was overprotective, perhaps too much. But life has taught me, whether we like to or not, in order to grow, we all must take a leap of faith and accept the outcome. Love, Dad." It was around noon the following day when Robert rushed through the hospital doors, his steps quick and heavy. Emily was already there, waiting by the ICU. "Em," he said, his voice strained. "How's he doing?" Her face was pale, her eyes rimmed red. "Not good, Dad. They say he needs a liver transplant." After a tense wait, the results came in. Robert was a match. Emily, however, was not. The doctors warned Robert of the risks. "At your age, the recovery could be tough," they said, concern in their voices. Robert looked them in the eye and nodded. As he was getting prepped for surgery, he took a moment to look at his son's face. He gently stroked Alex's head and said, "I'll see you again soon." The operation was a success. Alex stirred groggily, his vision unfocused, the room spinning around him. Then, out of nowhere, a deep wave of grief hit him, and tears welled up before he could understand why. Just as suddenly, he felt warmth like a hand gently resting on his head, as if someone was there, silently offering comfort. As his eyes cleared, the warmth faded, and Alex found himself alone in the room. Then, the door creaked open, and his sister entered. Alex's gaze shifted to the folded letter resting beside the bed. "Where's Dad?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Emily bit her lip, her face a mixture of relief and sorrow. But she couldn't answer immediately, only shaking her head as tears continued to fall. Alex stood in front of the tombstone, the road to recovery mostly behind him. His hands trembled as he placed the bouquet on the stone. Robert stood beside him, offering silent support. Together, they paused, paying tribute to the woman they both loved. In that moment, they sensed that they were finally finding their way back to each other.